Imagine yourself sitting in a hole in the ground with icy cold water rushing all over your face and your arms. The latrine, which has been dug behind you, has now flooded, and the human excrement, which was in it, is now marinating in the ice cold water which surrounds you all the way up to your knees, causing you to be unable to even feel your legs. For 3 days, your ears were bleeding, as they were not designed to be able to hear the roaring thunder of the artillery shells falling down around you. You can see the ground literally being pulled up, and corpses and skeletons of your comrades who have fallen in no man's land are being revealed only to be buried again by other artillery fire. This nightmare isn't hell. This is what our great grandparents experienced during World War I, a war that was meant to end all wars, a war that was senseless in its nature, as it was not fought for an ideology, it was not fought for defending the homeland. It was simply fought so that the ruling families, the ruling elites of Europe, to be able to redraw the map, to take all of the recent scientific advancements that mankind was able to produce during that time and put them into war, to see which nation is stronger. And while the ruling families knew what the war is really about, the people in the trenches had absolutely no idea what they were dying for. And as such, in Russia, the communist revolutionaries promised people peace, promised people an end to this nightmare. They said that if they win the revolution, they are going to pull Russia out of the war. They are going to bring an age of prosperity and peace to mankind. Because they said the people responsible for this war are the elites, are the ruling class, the aristocracy. And once they got into power, they became the new aristocracy. And while Lenin maintained its promise and pulled Russia out of war, the dictatorial process of communism could not prevent a man like Stalin from gaining into power and then making deals with the Nazis, invading Poland, invading Finland, and then causing most of the atrocities that have been done after World War II. And what the communist ideologues realized is that the promise of peace can create a factory which produces useful idiots. A useful idiot is a person who is fighting for a cause. He does propaganda for the cause without fully comprehending the cause's goals, and who is used cynically by the cause's leader. The term is coined by Lenin, who called the people who fought for the communist revolution as useful idiots. One example of using useful idiots was after World War II, the Soviet Communist Party created the World Peace Council, which was advocating against the use of nuclear weapons at a time when only the United States had them. The World Peace Council was directed by the International Department of the Soviet Communist Party via the Soviet Peace Committee. The World Peace Council and its members took the line laid down by the Cominform that the world was divided between the peace-loving Soviet Union and the warmongering United States. And this is how the Soviet Union managed to brand communism as the ideology of peace, in stark contrast with imperialistic United States, which seeks to oppress and subjugate other nations. The Soviet Union only interfered in other nations' affairs to liberate the workers, to bring equality. They had a noble cause to pursue. And it's during this time, during the height of the Cold War, that most NGOs advocating for peace in the United States had their members aligned to communism, and they would almost never criticize the USSR, but they would always criticize the United States. And the president at the time, Ronald Reagan, made this declaration on national television.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second. Surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better red than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
Like the whole basis of like communism is like people and planet above profit, right? Like we're here to preserve the planet, preserve people. We don't want to have to like eliminate people, right? But if people are going to try to fight back against the revolution, like when you hear about like atrocities committed by like in Cuba, like Fidel and Che, like killing people, like those people that were actively like they were like anti-revolution, they were like they were fighting against the revolution. Like in any war, like if you like when you guys were in war and you encountered people that were fighting against you, what did you do to those people? Right? I mean, the same thing holds true in revolution, right? Like you can't abide people like actively working against your revolution. Like you can give them a choice. Be like, hey, you can join the revolution. You can not be a bootlicker. You can sit idly by and allow it to happen. But if you're gonna take up arms against the revolution, then you should expect a violent response, right? Like it's natural.
Fight or die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What they kept in the Revolutionary War. Fight or die.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're at one of those moments in human history where it's like we're fighting for survival. We're fighting for the survival of the entire human race. We're fighting for the survival of living creatures on planet Earth. And you know, there's some people that will stop at nothing to preserve that, right? Like to see the human race continue into the future, right? To try to save the planet from destruction. And no matter what country or what laws that exist, they're irrelevant to, there are things greater than those systems, right? There are things that are more important than the rule of law in the United States when it comes down to the existence of the human race.
Funny how everything he said doesn't constitute hate speech. Even though he promotes a very violent ideology, which, if he were to have his way, would lead to millions of deaths, it is not targeting any of the protected classes that the people who make the definition of hate speech seem to protect. So, communism seems to get a pass. It seems that while Nazism is rightfully condemned for committing genocide based on ethnicity, communism can do it based on class, and it can still maintain the reputation of the ideology of peace.